Hey man, Mike Yarbrough here. You know what's awesome? When other guys find out about this podcast and they're called to change, to be better men, you've probably had this experience, right? You know some guy in your life and you're thinking, man, I wish this guy knew the things. I wish he could see himself from the outside like I see him, and he knew the things that I know about being a man. And some of the ways that you can cause that to happen is by sharing this podcast, by rating it, reviewing it on iTunes. Check out this awesome review from, I think it's Straight Beast Chiver. Don't know what that means. That's the name. It says, an amazing podcast of information, conversations from all sorts of different men and cultures and ideas. Since podcast number 1, I have not been able to stop listening and learning. Mike and his guests inspire myself and hopefully you to become a better man, to make our communities better. Do yourself a favor and start listening now. Guys, these reviews are one of the great ways to get the podcast out there in front of the guys who really need to hear it. And let's be honest, every man needs to hear it. So thanks so much for those of you who have left a review, and take 5 minutes of your day. Go out there, figure out how on iTunes to leave a review. That's something of a challenge. I know, I get it. But guys, it's going to make a big difference in the life of another man. Thanks so much.
Duty, honor, country dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be.
The destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals.
Now we are the masters of our fate.
Howdy, gents. Welcome back to another episode of the Wolf and Iron podcast. I'm your host, Mike Yarbrough, founder and curator of wolfandiron.com, and I'm so glad you're here, guys. It is hunting season as I record this episode here in North Carolina, so it's just about mid-September as this thing goes, before we air this thing, and it's all in the air. I don't know if you guys get this way, but I certainly do. When fall weather starts to hit in any kind of way, when the first cold breeze rolls in after summertime, I'm like, it is time to put my boots on and go out. And I'm excited this year. Hopefully I'll get a chance to get out there and take a deer. But my friend Aaron Towns, he's actually joining us on this podcast, and he's actually an avid hunter. He does something really cool. He's got something called Mission Outside. And with Mission Outside, he basically helps kids to kind of get outside and get in the outdoors. And that includes hunting and fishing and those kinds of things. We're going to talk a little bit in this episode about how to get your son or daughter outdoors, just his experience with he's got I think a now 3-year-old daughter, but I think they went out when they were 2 years old, when she was 2 years old, to go hunting for the first time. And so there's some of that in this episode, but it's also going to be really strongly focused around those of you men who want to hunt, but you probably haven't had that experience. You're kind of starting with it later in life. And we're going to give you some tips on how to start. We're going to talk about the hunting experience. But what I want you guys to take away from this is, one, there's an incredible opportunity for every man who's listening to this episode here in the U.S. to go out and kill something. At the end of the day, it's an incredible opportunity because not only do you get a chance to maybe put on some camo, buy a rifle and some ammunition or a cool bow, you get to go out and you learn how to track, and you get to go out and figure out how an animal thinks and how nature works, and to be the hunter. And guys, there's a part of you, I believe, there's a part of me for certain, there's a part of us that needs that. We need that experience. We need to get out into the woods, and we need to hunt things, and we need to kill them and put meat on our table. Now, if that sounds odd to you, that sounds strange to you, I'm just going to tell you, you need to see the history books, because we've been doing this for a long time. And that desire in there is not only is it self-satisfying in a lot of ways, but also it helps us to feel accomplishment and to feel like men. And so there's a definite correlation between manhood and man the hunter. And a lot of you guys haven't experienced that. I understand that. Maybe you grew up in the city and you're kind of thinking, Mike, I want to get out. I want to go hunt. I've had this desire, but I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how to execute on this thing. Check out this episode. You're going to enjoy it. Here's my friend, Aaron Towns. Mr. Aaron Towns, welcome to the Wolf and Iron podcast. I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So, you do something neat on the side. It's called Mission Outside, and it's all about hunting and getting kids outdoors. I want to talk about that here in just a second. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you grew up hunting and fishing, or if you didn't. I think the guys would just be interested to hear that story, because I know there are a lot of men that, I grew up hunting, didn't do a lot of fishing, but I grew up hunting quite a bit. And, but there are a lot of guys who didn't. And so they're just, a lot of guys are going to be listening to this episode going, how do I get involved in something that seems so foreign? So just give us an idea of like who you are and kind of how you got going down this path.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm my husband. It's my wife, Laura. We've been married for 5 years. We have 2 kids, a 3-year-old daughter, and then a 1-year-old son, just turned 1 last week. Professionally, I'm a sales director in the logistics and supply chain industry, so a third-party logistics provider. I use that kind of to fund what my wife and family do, and as well as to fund all of my outdoor interests and hobbies, namely anything hunting related. On the free time, that's pretty much where I spend the majority of my time. Whether it's trying to get my daughter, especially that she's 3, we try to get her out in the outdoors as much as possible. I actually took her on her first hunting trip last year, which was a good time.
Yeah.
And so that's where I spend the majority of my free time. And then on your question about did I grow up hunting, I actually didn't grow up hunting. I did a little bit of fishing, probably my teenager years with my uncle. We did do a good bit of that for a while. That kind of phased down, I think, with sports and riding horses and all the other things that kids, do. But I didn't get into hunting until I was in my early 20s. My best friend invited me to go on a duck hunt. I went out there with him. I loved the fact that we just were able to sit there in the outdoors in peace and quiet and kind of just chat, talk about some things, I guess, that we wouldn't otherwise probably talk about sitting, in a house.
Yeah.
And then, so he planted that seed for hunting. I lived in Charlotte. He lived in Memphis. So I didn't really have any access in Charlotte. And a few years later, a buddy by the name of Will Newton invited me to go hunting, and he kept going. He kept inviting. You got to come to my hunting hole. Well, finally, one day, I decided November 12th, I was like, all right, I'm going to go. And shot a little spike buck that morning.
Nice.
We got him out, cleaned him up, butchered him. And I think that seed that Brandon planted kind of was blossoming. And a month later, that friend Will, he passed away, and it was just one of those kind of out-of-body experiences where I believe his passion and obsession for hunting kind of just transferred over to me. And I think that next hunting season, I got my hunter safety, did the whole works, and I think I hunted probably 60+ days that next deer season.
Wow. Man.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, man, you really got out there. That's awesome. So, there's a couple of different points I want to jump off on here. First, I want to talk about you taking your girl out. So, how old's your daughter again?
Mm-hmm. She just turned 3 in August.
Okay, so what kind of hunting, or what did you guys actually do? Give us an idea.
Yeah, so I think we went in November of last year. It was a rather warm day. As I think I said it to some people, the conditions weren't right, the wind wasn't right, but at the end of the day, it was just about getting her in the outdoors. Yeah. Kind of giving her a little flavor of, what Daddy's always leaving to do. And I purposely waited till about an hour and a half before dark. We didn't go out there for some long session. Okay. I was praying that I could get an hour in. Yeah. And so we went out there, and I brought a couple little things just in case she got sidetracked. But it was just crazy. I mean, leading up to that, her and I walk around our neighborhood, and we're always looking for deer and birds and hawks. And so she had a natural curiosity towards those things, and she sat in my lap for like 50 minutes just asking all kinds of questions about the birds and the moon and where's the deer and this and that. I took a gun for familiarity purposes, but I didn't even bring any ammunition. There was no intention ever to shoot anything. It was just more of just getting her out there, getting that introduction. Yeah. And for 2 years old, I was completely blown away with some of the questions she was asking and her attention span. And I think 15, 20 minutes before dark, I could tell she was, things were changing. So we just, we left, and that was that.
Yeah, I think it's a great experience, and I think it's a great lesson for guys to get their son or daughter out there with them, even at an early age like that. Just saying, we're out here, we're looking for deer, right? And I think it does build in them that natural. They have a natural curiosity anyhow, especially at that age, but we always do. And I think it builds in them that it kind of solidifies something that's already kind of ingrained, and that is, we're out hunting, we're looking for something, we're trying to be aware of our environment, and we enjoy it. Like it's more than just come out here, and because a lot of times when the kids are teenagers, you take them out, they're just like, I got to go sit, for hours, and I got to get up before the sun's up, and all this other stuff, But when kids can kind of get some of that early on, I think it's going to help them out. Definitely going to make it easier down the road.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Still this day, like right now, I bet tonight she'll say, Daddy, when are we going deer hunting? And I don't know if she knows, the whole, what all that entails, but that always gets me fired up, when your 3-year-old child is asking you when you're going deer hunting.
Yeah. That's awesome. I thought about this is sort of a joke, but I thought about doing a little book on, how to skin a deer, right? How to field dress a deer and process it and all that. And it'd be for kids, and I thought it would be something kind of funny to do. More dads and stuff would probably buy it than would be for kids, but it'd be kind of like a, typical sort of kids book with the illustrations and all that kind of stuff, and it would be called something like Timmy and Buck Go to Stabby Town. And it would be, kind of like I like it. Timmy and Buck are friends. Where are they going to go? But it would kind of walk people through, like, here's how you field dress a deer. And like I said, it'd be more for guys because there are a lot of guys who they want to go hunting. Some of these things are kind of scary, right? Like, how do I shoot a deer now, what, right? Those kind of next steps and things like that. And so I think even just kind of bringing it down to almost a comedic level and having some fun with it, it kind of removes some of the, that sort of like, oh gosh, it's so gross, I got to cut open its guts and all that stuff. And
yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, humor can remove barriers at times. So, but and I did my first experience last year. I brought a deer. I killed it in December. I brought it back to the house, and I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going to skin it out here. I think Charleston should come out. Maybe she'll have 10, 15 minutes. If she doesn't understand or freaks out, I'll bring her in.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, even at that young of an age, her mind was able to handle. I know she didn't fully grasp some of the things.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, her mind was able to grasp it. She spent 2 hours out there while I skinned it, butchered it, deboned it, did the whole works. And I was amazed at some of the questions that she was asking throughout the process. And then she even grabbed her gardening tools and was mimicking what I was doing, as I was skinning the deer.
Yeah.
And I was impressed. And I was like, kids are capable of handling a little bit more. And I think a lot of it, I just kept associating with eating deer. And so, every time we eat deer, she's like, Daddy, eat deer? Yeah. So I think kids can handle it, especially if you have that little bit of humor into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Kids, they kind of walk into the world and they just experience reality. They don't necessarily have all the ideas about like death and life and blood and guts and all the stuff that kind of comes later on down the road. This is just the way it is, right? There's food.
Yep.
How does it get to your table? Well, you kill it, or somebody kills it, and you got to go through the butchering process and all that. I had a lot of great experiences growing up with my grandparents. My granddaddy was a big hunter, took me out a number of times. I remember I killed a squirrel. I was a terrible hunter as a kid because I didn't have good eyesight, and I didn't know that until I was a teenager. But went out squirrel hunting a few times, and with a shotgun you can hit just about anything. So I eventually killed a squirrel and brought it back. It was a decent sized squirrel, and my grandmother cooked it up, put it in the stew, and I was probably 11 or so, maybe 10 or 11 years old at this point. And she would basically tell me every time I would ask her, or she told me later on that I would always ask her, like, hey, is that my squirrel? Anytime we'd have squirrel for dinner. Hey, is that my squirrel? Like, as if my squirrel was going to last, more than a half a pot of meat or whatever.
Yeah.
But it is cool how kids grab that.
Yep.
So you kind of came into hunting later on down the road. So you did some fishing. I know you said you had a friend take you out. What really kind of drew you into that? Like, was there something aside that said, I want to go shoot something? or was it just, you wanted to have that experience of putting meat on the table? What was it?
Yeah, so for me, I've always been a friends person. Like, I just love spending time with good quality people.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the initial, the opening the door for me to do it. And then secondly, like, I always kind of feel like, and I really feel more so now, that, being able to put a meat on the table is just a very manly experience.
Yeah.
And, in my early 20s, you're kind of searching, where am I going to fit in this world of being a man?
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the secondary thing to say, I'll go out there and try that. That would be an unbelievable experience to be able to procure my own food and not rely on other people. And I just think, lastly, it was just a good life skill to have under the belt that I was willing to learn.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of guys are kind of haunted by this notion of, like, if the crap hits the fan, am I able to care for myself and my family? Like, at the most basic root level, am I able to survive? Do I know how to trap? Do I know how to fish? And I think you're kind of right. When I was in my 20s, that kind of started creeping back up in me. I hunted when I was a kid, right into my teenage years, and then I stopped and I moved into the city, and so a lot of that knowledge that I had I knew it was there, but I hadn't experienced it, I hadn't practiced it in a number of years, and so it wasn't until I was probably in my upper 20s that I finally got a chance to go back out on my own as an adult and hunt. But there was a lot of that almost like a not an anxiety, but it was sort of like this: I need to know these things. Like, it's really important to know how to do this on my own without anybody else's help, And
yep.
And so that kind of drove me a lot of ways to go out there and make it happen.
Are you hunting private or public, or a little bit of both?
So the first time that I went back out, it was public lands, and great spot, beautiful scenic location. The first time I went out, I saw 7 deer, took one.
Oh,
and
nice.
It was just great. I was like, oh man, this is the honey hole. Well, while I was there, actually, so I'd taken a buck, and I'd taken a doe, and I'd just come down from the stand, given it the usual amount of time. I could see it off, and I could see it kind of like wagging its tail and dying.
Mm-hmm.
So I got down out of the stand and went in and was getting ready to field dress it, and these other hunters came up because they'd heard the shot, and they were great. They helped me out with the field dressing and stuff. I knew how to do it, but I was kind of like doing it on my own doing it on your own a lot of times is a lot harder than deer are heavy and they roll all over the place. Anyhow, so these other hunters came over. Well, the next year I came back out, and the place was just filled with tracks and trash, and then we had a bunch of people. It just seemed like every year after that it just got worse and worse. So that didn't last very long. But now I hunt on some private lands about 15 minutes from the house. And
oh, great.
Yeah, so it's good. And I actually have a bow this year, so I'll be going out hopefully in the next few weeks. At least get out one time, if nothing else, just to scout. I really enjoy that process of it. Sometimes more than hunting. I just like scouting around and trying to understand the mind of the deer, like where are they going.
I completely agree with that. It's just as much fun to me as the actual hunt itself.
I will say, though, that this is what you bring up, public versus private lands, this is a big blocker for a lot of guys that want to go out and hunt. So unless they've got a friend that's like, hey, I got 30, 40 acres, whatever, come on, let's go. Guys are really guarded about where they hunt, right? We don't want that thing to happen where everybody starts to come on there and they're camping out there sometimes, and they're half drunk and they're shooting their guns off and that kind of stuff. And we don't want them to mess that up for us. And there is sort of a sense of my space is kind of sacred. Like, I'm almost as if when I'm there, I'm kind of caring for the land. Like, we're shooting the deer, but we also want to protect and conserve and all that. And we certainly don't want to give that away and just make it, open range for anybody. So do you have any advice for the guys that are really wanting to get started hunting? They've tried the public lands and they're just not seeing anything that's good. I know down here a lot of the public lands are owned by the timber companies or the utility companies, and they just get mowed down. They mow the trees down. They just plant all the pine trees, and it's just a bunch of shrubs, and it looks terrible. So technically, there's public lands, but they're not worth anything as far as hunting in most cases. But do you have any advice for the guys that are really wanting to get started to find a place to go?
Yeah, I would say so. I do a little bit of both. I hunt private. I got a lease that I'm on with, a group of guys, and I do the public land hunting as well. And typically from the public land side, I think if you Google search public land, you'll get scared off pretty quickly. Just go to a few forums,
Yep.
and you'll be like, you know what, I don't want to go get shot out of a tree. In my experience, that's not the case. But if you decide, say you go to Uwharrie National Forest, which is an hour from me,
Yep.
I mean, if you're only willing to walk 10 minutes off the trail, yeah, you're going to bump into other hunters. If you're willing to walk a mile off the trail, I would be surprised if you went a whole season and saw a hunter. And if you did, maybe it'd be one hunter. Most people aren't willing to walk off the trail. I don't know if it's a fear of darkness or it's a fear of getting lost, or it's just the comfortability aspect of it. But, from my experience, the public land, if you're willing to do just a little bit of hiking, and I just use 1 mile as the rule of thumb, you won't see people. And if you do, that person's probably a great hunter. And, if you're in a spot, they're just you see you, they respect that you are there first, and they kind of move on down, down the trail.
Yeah, that's good.
But for private land,
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you're interested in private, and I mean, this is the way that I went when my buddy Will passed away. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to hunt. I still have zero access.
Yeah.
I just started emailing every single hunting club within an hour of Charlotte, where I live. And I got multiple responses. Most of them said, wait till after the deer season. I joined a club that year. After that, I changed clubs to a spot that was a little bit closer. And I've been hunting with that group of guys for the past, 5-6 years now. And they're some of my closest friends. All of us just came back from a hunt in Idaho last week on public land. Didn't see a hunter the whole entire week. And so there's options out there. And certainly a hunt club is a good option. Or that, which is more in the southeast and the Midwest. They have, hunt clubs are not as big, and you have to lease land, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I've you mentioned Idaho. I imagine the deer there are massive compared to what we've got here in North Carolina and South Carolina, where you are, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. The body on the one whitetail we saw, he was probably 250 pounds, and he was a younger buck. I couldn't believe it.
I remember I went to Iowa one time for a business trip, and just on the side of the road, I was taking a taxi, and just on the side of the road, there's a buck that had gotten hit by some traffic. And this thing was massive. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this thing is, just a random deer on the side of the road is, almost like twice the size as what we've got here in North Carolina. It makes me actually feel bad about shooting some of the deer here because they're just they're almost like the size of a dog, but just, a little bit larger.
Yeah, pine trees are not the best nutrition, habitat for nutrition for deer. That's for sure.
Yeah. What's interesting too about when you get into hunting, there's so much to it that, guys, when they're just kind of getting started, they might think, okay, I've got to get a gun, maybe some camo, learn a little bit about upwind, downwind, that kind of stuff, how to hunt, the deer. When you really get into it, though, you learn a lot about forestry. And you learn a lot about the different types of trees and, that the deer prefer white acorns rather than, the red acorns. Mm-hmm. And even things like the old chestnut trees that are gone now, at least in this area, in most of the U.S., that got killed by a blight, I think, that kind of finished them off in the 1940s, started before that, but finished them off around the 1940s. But these old chestnut trees that were just all over the U.S., and that dropped these massive, chestnuts, and the deer and the pigs and everything that was roaming free out here, they would just get massive on these things because they had so much fat and vitamins and stuff in them. And when you start to learn about just the history of the land and the richness that was here before deforestation and other things as well, as well as just a blight coming over from China, it really just makes you appreciate the past and what people. What America really was and what we had available to us when the settlers first came here and first put their feet on the ground.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Hunting has made me curious into history. I was never a history guy growing up in school. Was not my forte of a class. And it's funny now I'll sit here and read different books like the Sam County Almanac, just books that kind of talk about the way the habitat was then. And and then from that, it kind of makes me appreciate what we have now and makes me more willing to stand up and be a voice for those wild places that are left today. Because, as it stands, as it looks today, it's going to shrink. Those places are going to continue to shrink unless we stand up and fight for those wild lands and waters and wildlife.
Yep, absolutely. We think about guys like Theodore Roosevelt, who was an avid hunter, as most of the listeners of this know, and he was also one of the founders of many of our national parks, and and a big conservationist in that respect. That didn't mean that he didn't want to go there and shoot everything, but he still appreciated the wildlife and he wanted to preserve it so that other people could go and see and hunt, and that America would have that available. I don't know if you have any experience hunting overseas or anything like that, do you?
I do, actually. I do.
So I'm just wondering, and just in terms of like a comparison between the freedom that we have here in the U.S. to go and hunt versus somewhere else in the world, what are we looking at? I mean, is it so much easier here in the U.S. versus, I don't know, over in Europe or Hawaii, or I don't know if Hawaii's U.S., but you know what I mean, other places?
Yep. Well, I'm glad that you asked that question because, was it 3 years ago, I believe, I went over to Spain, and I through Ducks Unlimited, my wife and I purchased a hunt to donated to charity.
Okay.
And we ended up hunting. It's called the Cite ibex, or Spanish ibex, which is a goat.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I hunted on their public land. However, as a citizen of that country, I'm not. But you couldn't just go and buy a tag over the counter at your local Walmart or wherever and go hunt it. You had to pay. All those tags were spoken for at the different businesses that run outfitters, on that land. And so for me, that was an eye opener when he's like, "Yeah, this is public land, but you got to pay me to get the tag to be able to even hunt it." And so you're paying for a premium there. Whereas in Idaho, I just came back from there last week. I spent I think $400 on an elk tag. Spent another couple hundred on a non-resident tag.
Yeah.
And I was able to, roam free on millions of acres. And I mean, we saw elk every single day. I even stuck an arrow in one. And so, it's completely different. We're lucky and fortunate to have the opportunities that we do all across this country, especially out west, where a lot of the land is still, just untouched, pristine land.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that, it's almost a shame if we don't take advantage of it. Because there may be a time down the road where we don't have the ability to do that. Our grandkids don't have the ability, for whatever reason, to go out and hunt. Maybe there's a deer blight or another tree blight that causes the population of the animals to decrease or something along those lines. And just the ability to go out and experience that is definitely something we should take advantage of. So for the guys that are listening to this, and I'm kind of gearing this more for the maybe first time hunters or guys that are just kind of getting into it.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about archery season, and then I also want to talk about rifle season. I want to talk a little bit about what are some things that they could do to prepare for, archery season, a little bit late this year, but certainly for next year. What are the kind of things that they may want to invest in, or that they need to have knowledge about before they go out for archery season? And one of the reasons, guys, that I would promote archery season is because, one, it's not freezing. It starts early in the year, like here it's September as I record this, and it's been going on for about a week or so here in North Carolina. And it continues all the way into basically almost February, I think, of next year. So you've got a really long season. You get out there before anybody else does. It is before, the deer are in heat, so they're not moving around quite as much. But still, there's the opportunity to get out there and do that scouting, and you're not going to be freezing to death like you will be in, late December or January or something like that.
Yeah, so I know what I did. I didn't have, a lot of means at the time to just go out and spend thousands of dollars on, different hunting gear, this and that. And, I'm sure there's plenty of people that were like that. And secondly, I didn't even know if I was going to, you're like, well, is this just going to be a short-term hobby? Am I going to jump in and sink and not want to do this? So I went to Craigslist, and now I'd probably say it's probably more like Facebook Marketplace. And I went and purchased my first bow on there. I spent, I think, a couple $100 and bought a PSC Bow Madness used. And that guy threw in arrows, he threw in broadheads, And then I went and bought a target. I would say the first thing is don't get caught up in all the marketing hype.
Yep.
If you shoot a bow that it has the proper weight, which is for a deer, it's over 45 pounds, which is the draw weight.
Yeah.
If you shoot a proper bow and you put the arrow where the vitals are of the animal, you will kill it. So I would not worry about spending $1,000 on a bow. I still to this day don't have a $1,000 bow. I have a $500 bow.
Yeah.
And that was fully out the door.
Yeah.
And I would get out and practice. I mean, I would say I probably practice 3 times a week. And a lot of it's just more, for me, it's become a therapy session. You're out there by yourself. You have to focus when you shoot archery. It's not something you can just go out, and if you got a lot of things on your mind, you will not be accurate.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate a lot of that comes with the archery. But I would, you buy your simple target, and I just would shoot. I would go to an archery shop and take lessons. If you don't want to spend the money, I didn't want to spend the money. I YouTube. There's so many resources out there. Now there's podcasts that are specifically archery podcasts, like Knock On TV, I think is one podcast that I listen to. John Dudley does that one. And you learn a lot of tips and tactics there to help, be a better shooter. And so, from an archery standpoint, I would go out there and shoot until you're confident that you're going to hit your target. Because, for me, I'm all about being an ethical hunter. Mm-hmm. And it's like last week when we were out there, they're like, well, how far do you want to shoot? And I was like, well, I'm going to shoot out to 50. I know I can shoot to 60, but I'm confident. I feel like I can almost do it with my eyes closed at 50 and in, 50 yards. Yeah. And so you really want to get to that point before you should be out in the woods shooting at live animals. You're out in the woods by yourself, but you really need to be cautious of what you're doing, because I think it shows the character of the person, kind of what they're doing when nobody else is watching. And I believe you just owe it to the animals and the hunters that came before us to be an ethical hunter, and the ones that will come after us. Yep. So that would be from the archery standpoint. On the rifle, I went and bought a used gun. I think I spent $250 at a local gun shop here. And I instantly went to the range, got it bore-sighted, and there's all kinds of YouTube videos that will show you how to do that. Pretty simple. And then I got the cheapest. I think I may have spent $50, $75 on a scope, threw it on there. I actually paid somebody to mount it. Yeah. And then I just went to the range and got it all dialed in, and that was where I killed my first few deer with that 270 rifle. And I still have that gun to this day and still use it.
Did you get the 270 thinking that you're going to be going on more like open plain hunts and that kind of stuff? Because I know around here, in the brush type area, taking a shot at 150 yards would be, unless you're going across a field or something like that, not super likely, just because of the density of the trees and stuff like that. So a lot of people go for 30-30s or something along those lines. But what made you go, 270 is the rifle for me?
For me, it was an affordable gun. It didn't have a whole lot of kick. I'm coming into this as not an experienced gun user. Yeah. So that was what the recommendation of my friends that were avid gun people to go with. Because that gun has zero kick. And where I'm hunting at, I would say majority of the shots are 50 yards and in. Mm-hmm. There's some power lines where you can reach out and touch one. I typically don't hunt power lines myself. Yeah. But yeah, so now this day I use a 30 or a 30-06 to do some rifle hunting, or a 300 Win Mag. One of those three. It just depends on the day and what I'm feeling like. That 300 Win Mag has a little weight to it, and sometimes that can get old lugging that thing around.
Yeah, if you want to go waste some time, just go out on a hunting forum and read a conversation about what caliber of rifle to use. Yeah. And you'll be there all day. So,
yep, everybody's got an opinion, and I would say go with what you can afford and what you can get your hands on, and what you can practice shooting with.
One of the great things about this too is that even for the people whose kids they don't want to go hunting, they have zero desire. Like I've got 2 teenage boys. They just don't like the idea of going to hunt. I mean, they love eating meat, but they don't want to go hunt. And they know I like to go and all that kind of stuff. And, I've asked them, hey, do you want to go hunting with me? No, but things that they can do, And it actually might get them excited to go on a hunt. Take them scouting. That's a big one, right? Just tromping through the woods one day, not worrying too much about, making noise, but you're probably trying not to leave a scent. And you're just looking for rubs. You're looking for droppings. You're looking for scrapes. You're looking for things like that. Just kind of helping them to understand what to look for. And then it's great too if you get a chance, if you're out there and you see a deer or you hear one or something like that. It's a good experience. The other thing is just bringing them into that archery world or into the shooting world. Archery is a lot of fun, especially even with a recurve bow. And bring them along to practice with that. So that they can just feel confident and just have fun. It's just freaking fun to shoot stuff. And so I just want to remind the guys out there that are listening to this. Yeah, maybe you have kids that don't want to go out and hunt with you. Maybe you're not even sure if you want to go hunting. These are things that you can actually begin doing well before you get to the part where you kill a deer, and kind of work yourself up to that, but also bring your kids along as well.
Yeah. So a question on your kids: did you take them when you were younger, or kind of how have they come up through it, or not come up through it?
Yeah. So
knowing that you were
so I was in my 20s when, like I said, when I started hunting again as an adult, and they were probably about 7 and 10, something like that. And they were interested in going on, out to the woods, kind of look around, kind of scouting around, trying to be quiet, maybe there might be a deer out here, maybe around the corner, that kind of stuff. They enjoyed that part. But as they kind of got older and I said, hey, do you guys want to go hunting with me? They're like, no, I don't want to. So, okay. And my thinking is, it may be something kind of like what you experienced. They'll probably recognize that it's something that they passed up when they were young enough to go do it with their dad. And it might be something that they want to do as they get older. And they those questions come around when they're in their 20s and they go, man, I really want to be able to just put meat on the table and I want to just have an experience. I was telling my wife the other day, actually, we were talking about hunting, and I actually eat mostly a vegetarian diet, or flexitarian, I guess. I eat fish and I eat some eggs and different things. But for the most part, I eat just really kind of clean vegetables and stuff like that. But I do like to eat meat on occasion. And I told her, I said, I really just want to go hunting because I want to kill things. I enjoy, if I were just to be totally honest about it, I enjoy going out hunting and feeling like I've conquered a bit of nature. I've outsmarted an animal and I can put food on the table. And I like the visceral nature of it. I enjoy just, being out there in the woods and the kind of relaxing piece of it. But I actually just I like to kill an animal. I like to, go through the whole process of cutting it up, putting it in the freezer. And even if I just give it away, there's just something about that whole experience that's really enjoyable. And I think a lot of guys are kind of taught to maybe repress that piece of this because it sounds like this guy's gonna, he's a psychopath. He's gonna go. No, it's not. We're just born as an innate desire to hunt, and I think that it can be satisfied, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it blesses people. You bring somebody some deer meat. I tell you what, you got friends for life right there.
No doubt, and I completely concur with that. I quit using the word harvest.
Yeah,
I was using that for a while because I felt like it was one of those desensitized for people that were kind of desensitized to hunting that would come off better.
Yeah.
But I quit using that word because at the end of the day I am out there to kill an animal and I shouldn't try to sugarcoat what I'm doing. And so I'm glad that you're doing that as well.
And I think that's something that a guy has got to recognize about himself. There is some of this sort of getting in touch with the internal hunter that wants to go out, that wants to track in the old school ways and learn how to take an animal down. Give us an idea of some of maybe here in the U.S., some of the trips that you'd like to go on. I know you've been on a few. Maybe you could even talk about those, but just to kind of inspire the guys to think about where could we go, what could we hunt, what are some games, some game around here that may not be in the reach for a brand new hunter, but that somebody could kind of say, man, maybe in the next 5 or 6 years, I'd love to go hunt here or this type of animal.
Well, I would say on the top of my list there's the Western and Eastern. So I want to tackle the North Carolina public land whitetail buck. that is on the top of my list for this year.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm going to put the public land black bear on, which I'm going to hunt the western part of North Carolina on public ground. So those are the top two things on the east. And then out west, I mean, I'm still, after this past week, I just came back from an elk hunt. We were in elk every single day on public ground. I saw the herd bull, which is the largest bull of the group. I saw him at 35 yards. Wasn't able to get a shot off because there was too much brush, and there just wasn't an ethical shot on him. I did end up shooting what they would call a satellite bull. He's one of the bulls that follows the herd bull, hoping the herd bull dies so he could take over the cows.
Yeah.
And I did actually stick an arrow in him, and while I didn't get him, it's what's one thing I love about archery? It's a game of inches.
Yeah.
And I was probably an inch too far forward, and it stuck in his shoulder. And so, that whole situation kind of fired me back up for elk. I was disappointed for the animal. I was disappointed for my friends, and I came all the way out there that I didn't, make it a merciful kill. And, I'm sure he experienced a little bit of pain. But, it just shows you why you have to be confident in your shot, because I thought it was a perfect shot. But I guess his shoulder is so big, it's blocking part of the vitals, and I did not execute on that shot. So it was a lesson learned, and I would say for your listeners to kind of visualize, this bull was the herd bull. He was making these sounds where he was pushing his cows, so we bugled, and he bugled back instantly. When we take a big log and we're beating it against a tree to sound like we're another big elk, we're looking for a fight. And this elk, he is bugling his head off like every 5-10 seconds. And then we take off running down the mountain with our bows. And, at that point, like, you kind of, like, looking back at it, it's like you feel like you're in your ancestors' shoes years ago. Because, now I'm like, all right, where's he at? How do I use the wind? How's he going to come in?
Yeah.
I kind of flanked to the south about 50 yards and got in front. And, we ran down, and he was ready for fight until the last minute. And he said, you know what, I'm not ready for a fight. He pushed his cows on and off. So that experience alone would have had me hooked for a lifelong of elk hunting, even though we didn't get it.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those unbelievable. I mean, 15 years ago, I would never visualize myself running through brush. My pants were torn to shreds from running through with a bow and arrow chasing after a 1,000-pound animal, trying to get him killed.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those experiences I'll probably never forget, and it'll probably have me hooked on an elk hunter for the rest of my life.
Man, it's got my blood pumping just thinking about it. That's good. That's a
good
story.
And all that happened on public land, St. Joe National Forest. And, people don't, you talk to people, I think, in the East. I don't know if your listeners are primarily Eastern or if they're spread out, but I think there's a stigma if public land is bad hunting. I have not experienced that. I know people have had bad experiences, but out west, I killed 2 black bears out there a couple of years ago on public ground. So there's some great hunting if you're just willing to spend a little bit of money, travel out there, or travel here locally in North Carolina or whatever state you live in, and just get out there and experience it. You'll see fantastic things, and for that, there's no price tag on the fantastic things I've seen and heard, and just a decade of hunting.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Well, guys, I think this has been a great conversation. Aaron, I really appreciate having you on the podcast. I know some of the guys are listening to this and they're going, okay, I know what I'm doing. They're going on, they're going on Craigslist right now, or they're going on Facebook and they're looking up, okay, where can I get a bow? Where can I get a rifle? And they're going to try to hunt down their buddies that hunt and say, all right, what do I need to know? Let's go. Let's make it happen next year. Guys, don't lose the fire for this. This is something that you can get started on now, and you can practice and start training and collecting your gear and stuff like that through the season. If you're too late to get out there this year, and if nothing else, maybe find somebody who will take you out for, just let you go along for the hunt. If you're familiar with the rifle, at least, there's a good chance you'll get a chance to maybe take a deer. But just get some of that experience going. What I find for me is that it kind of, maybe it's not the same for you because I know this is more of a passion of yours, but for me, it kind of dies down. Like the fever to go hunt kind of dies down until right around the beginning of September. And it's something about, there's like a cool breeze that comes along, and I feel like fall's in the air, and I really just start to long for it, just to get out there. And so I imagine that's for a lot of guys are feeling the same thing. So just make it happen, guys. Aaron, my friend, any parting words for us or anything like that?
Yeah, so I would say, if you're not a hunter today, haven't considered it, I would certainly, I believe, I don't have any scientific proof, but I do believe in our genetics, we have that yearning to be a hunter. You're either a hunter or gatherer in life. And I believe probably most of us have it. When I was a kid, camo was almost a cuss word to me. And, once I was introduced to hunting, now I got thousands of dollars of camo.
Yeah.
So I would say, just give it a shot. You get out there. If you don't know anybody hunting, there's a lot of great organizations that are willing to help you. I would reach out to your state DNR, or like in our case, we have North Carolina Wildlife Resources. They have a whole email, hunting.heritage@ncwildlife.org.
Okay.
That if you email them, they will find you a mentor to get you into hunting.
Wow.
And they will help you through the process. And, their goal is to get more people to reactivate old hunters that have fallen out and to recruit new ones and then retain the ones that are hunting. And you're seeing that it's called R3. It's across the country now. So yeah, I would look for those organizations. I'm a part of an organization called Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Go to their Facebook page or something. I see people all the time come on and ask, "Hey, new to hunting, how do I get about it?" And you will be surprised at how many people are willing to help you, willing to take you out to their spots and get you involved. And so there's no shortage of resources. You just got to be willing to put in a little bit of work and, purchase the basic necessities and then go from there.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. Great way to end it. And once again, I really appreciate you being on here. Great conversation. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to go out. I'm trying to see if I can kick off work now.
Yeah. Well, good luck this season, and hopefully you'll be able to put some meat in the freezer.
That's right. Yep. Yes, sir. You too. Thanks again. Well, there you have it, men. I'd love to know what you thought about the episode. Feel free to reach out to me on any of my social media networks. And look, if you got something out of this, make sure another guy does too. Share the episode and make sure it gets in front of the guys that need to hear it the most. Until next time, keep your powder dry, and may a fair wind be always in your sails.